For travellers to Hong Kong, a common sight is the modern international airport, situated on a vast island formed from reclaimed land. In addition to the iconic skyscrapers, vibrant lights, bustling shopping centres, renowned restaurants, ancient temples, and world-famous amusement parks, Hong Kong offers a multitude of familiar vistas. Yet, if you take a moment to pause and look closer, you may encounter scenes like this. Elders hunched over, meticulously sifting through waste bins in search of plastic bottles. Aged citizens propelling carts laden with stacks of cardboard boxes, moving at a deliberate pace, determined by the limits of their strength. Lin Hong, 84 years old, uses all her strength to push a heavy cart of boxes down the street, stepping steadily. A sleek, brand-new Mercedes follows closely behind her, moving slowly as it navigates the narrow road. This is a common sight in this city. Wealth and poverty coexist, much like yin and yang in the Taoist beliefs ingrained in Chinese culture. We follow the box cart until we reach a commercial building, in which recyclable materials can be sold. The single cart of boxes, which Lin Hong pushed all the way here, is worth about $4. Apart from collecting and selling cardboard boxes, there isn't much work available for the elderly. The eyes and face beneath the umbrella hat may appear exhausted, but there's not a hint of complaint. Lin Hong mentioned that she has a son who is approximately 50 years old and single, predominantly due to the fact that he's unable to effectively communicate verbally. As a result, she is responsible for his care and well-being. This is her first round. Lin Hong has to collect cardboard boxes for another half a day before she has enough for another sale in the evening. We didn't have the opportunity to see where she lives, but it's likely that her place is fairly similar to other places we visited. Even though Robloak has covered the cage homes for the poor in Hong Kong before, coming back here is still shocking. Last time we looked at various homes, including homes on rooftops, cage homes, and coffin homes. This time, we return to find out the answer to why, in a city known as one of the world's major economic hubs, there's still so much dire poverty. Old, dilapidated apartments are divided into tiny boxes, 8 in total. Each box is about 10 square feet, just enough for the mattress. Tenants' belongings are stacked vertically against the walls. They can only cook simple meals and eat here. Tim Liang, 65 years old, is truly alone in this world. He parted ways with his wife. He had no children, and there are no close relatives left. Every day at 8 a.m, Liang leaves his tiny room to visit the greenery in the public park in the metropolis. An elderly man spends his time here alone all day. Sometimes he might see friends who are of the same age and who share the same purpose for visiting this public park. Liang mentioned that he spends the entire day here before heading back to his lodging at around midnight. Even though the sun has set for many hours, the stifling heat lingers in that small room. So he chooses to stay outside for as long as possible. At the very least, there are green trees, fresher air to breathe, and an open space in which to move around. He tells us about the malignant tumour that's destroying his lungs. Liang hasn't worked since he found out he was sick and had to spend time in hospital last year. Previously, he worked in a restaurant, earning around $830 a month. This is considered the lowest income for Hong Kong residents. When his health deteriorated and he was diagnosed with cancer, he had to quit his job and now lives like this. Images of Hong Kong's caveman, coffin residents and box dwellers have now been exposed, shocking the world. The question is, why does one of the world's richest cities still face issues like this? Hong Kong prospered by being a trade hub and developing a capitalist economy. Capitalism is based on the principle of free competition. Success is measured in monetary wealth. Those who lose are often left behind. These people are blue-collar workers working for meagre wages. They have no savings, no retirement plans. No matter how old they get, they must continue working to feed themselves. The image of elderly people rummaging through trash, collecting cardboard boxes to sell, clearly reflects this harsh reality.
Well, you could apply for public housing and you could apply for welfare if you can sustain that harsh process. Some of our elderly people would rather use their own efforts to scavenge the street, pick up cardboards, try their best to make ends meet.
It's not that no one's aware. Everyone here is very familiar with such sites and understands that this is one of Hong Kong's problems.
Well, to apply for welfare, one really has to put your dignity aside. Our welfare system is delivered in a way that is very harsh and meager. You would have to ask your children to sign a paper saying that they pretty much given up on providing any support to you before they would give you welfare. So it's a very undignified process for Chinese elderly especially to go through such a process, to admit to the public almost that they don't want to support them. So who would want to go through that process?
Some members of the Legislative Council have taken steps to allocate a portion of the government's substantial funds to provide greater assistance to the elderly population. Nevertheless, these efforts appear to have faced challenges and have not achieved the desired level of success. The primary argument from the opposition is that Hong Kong operates under a capitalist free market system, rather than being a welfare state.
In the lawmaking body here, we do not have all the seats directly elected by the people. Half of the seats are elected by smaller groups of people, many of them representing the business. And they don't like the current tax regime to be changed, which is very low tax, which is very friendly to the business and the corporations. And if they see welfare expenditure increasing, it might call for tax increase. And therefore, they want to keep welfare low and therefore tax low, keep the government commitment to public services low, and therefore they don't have to look at the tax system at all.
So they can get more profit.
Exactly.
The welfare for impoverished elderly amounts to only about $130 a month. This is insufficient to live in a city like Hong Kong, which ranks among the most expensive in the world in terms of living costs. The primary source of funding for most of Hong Kong's elderly is personal savings and investments. When incomes are too low for saving or investing, they are left hoping for government assistance. The system of caring for the elderly seems outdated, failing to adapt to economic and societal changes and realities.
We're not in short supply when it comes to money, but the government takes a very conservative position in that it does not want to provide universal pension. As to why they take such a position, I think is, for one, a tradition that carries from colonial government, that this sort of retirement protection is deemed as welfare. And welfare is only for those who can least support themselves, not for everybody.
Besides the poverty, Hong Kong faces the problem of an aging population, a challenge that many countries are facing. In the case of Hong Kong, this aging population issue is compounded by the problem of congestion, being one of the most densely populated areas in the world. Cage or coffin homes have emerged to meet the vast demand. Government-provided housing, which is in better condition, comes with specific eligibility criteria. Only families are eligible. Single people don't qualify. Furthermore, even if one meets the criteria, they may have to endure long waiting periods spanning several years.
Even he apply for public housing for single people take a long time.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Now some of the single people, we have a point system for single people to wait for public housing. So some of them, they need for wait for over 20 years. Because now we have around 120,000 people, they're single waiting for public housing. But every year we only allocate 2,000 units to the single people.
Housing is scarce and expensive, but living in cage or coffin homes negatively impacts human dignity. As a result, some entrepreneurs have come up with an alternative. This capsule-shaped box resembling a spacecraft became popular in the hospitality industry, known as capsule hotels. Some families started buying these capsules to place in their homes, allowing families with limited space and multiple members to have a small private space, rather than always sharing. It isn't much different from a coffin home, just newer, cleaner, comes with more amenities, and is more expensive.
We have a client is for the university dormitory and the internet bar and hospital and hotel also is our main business.
But you told me like more and more individual.
Yeah. Because last year I start to push in the family market. So this year is better.
So more family buy.
So many.
The market for families is expanding, with the price of each box being around $2,000. It's another option for those with decent incomes who can't afford a spacious apartment, yet don't want to live in cage or coffin homes. Following Hong Kong's return to mainland China, housing prices experienced a meteoric rise, almost doubling over the subsequent 2 decades. This was partly due to mainland Chinese buying property in Hong Kong as investments, driving the prices even higher. Hong Kong's housing prices are the most expensive in the world. We visited a commercial apartment to gain a better understanding of the reasons for these extreme prices.
If you want to see more great content from all over the world, please like the video, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. Thank you.
For this 25 square meter room, the monthly rent stands at approximately $2,500. If you were considering purchasing it, the price would be a staggering $1.6 million. Witnessing such exorbitant housing costs provided us with a clearer perspective on the situation of those with low incomes. This is why individuals like Tim Liang and numerous other underprivileged residents in Hong Kong are compelled to reside in compact, windowless accommodation. It is simply all that they can afford. Hong Kong has a thriving economy and is one of the world's wealthiest territories. Yet the elderly here often have to work and live in poor housing conditions. One reason is their low income, which prevents them from saving enough for retirement. They were once a youthful population, part of the main workforce driving the economy. While some may have families or descendants to care for them in their old age, for those without, the state doesn't provide sufficient welfare to support them.
We continue to generate wealth in the past 2 decades. Our GDP has increased more than 60%. But the government does not intervene to redistribute that wealth. Wealth is concentrated in the hands of only a few. That's pretty much how a capitalist society runs. You know, you have the economic development, and yet, of course, it would only be beneficial to the rich and powerful. The government has to intervene to redistribute that wealth.
But you don't have democracy.
But there isn't democracy. There isn't a drive to make the government accountable and make the society more just.
Even though the welfare budget for the elderly has been increased, it's still less than 5% of the national budget and less than 1% of Hong Kong's substantial GDP. The state's pension scheme, the Mandatory Provident Fund of Hong Kong, only passed into law in 2010. Existing measures to help the poor, like establishing a minimum wage and defining official poverty lines, only partially address the problem.
That tells you how our welfare system fails the elderly. Although we have cash assistance program for them, in the end, 30% of our elderly, 65 years of age or older, still live in poverty.
And we face many this criticism from the society, because they think we don't want to have universal, or we don't want to have more resources. People, they're poor. If you help them, they will become more poor, lazy.
Why?
So people have this kind of thinking, in Hong Kong.
That's makes sense.
Inadequate measures to support the elderly, coupled with the social values of the Chinese, result in the elderly continuing to work well past any official retirement age. Tim Liang told us that true Hong Kongers will work until they die. He said that it's part of the Chinese and Hong Kong culture, that if you still have the strength and the ability, you must continue working to earn money. For Liang, as much as he wanted to work, his lung cancer made it impossible. This forced him to seek assistance from the Social Welfare Department, going through many complicated processes before receiving elderly and sickness benefits. The social welfare he receives each month, along with an extra $510 for the cancer, totals around $780. After deducting $280 rent for the cage home and the minimum monthly cost of living of about $360, he has $140 left to meet other expenses. This is a tight budget for living in Hong Kong, but for a solitary man who lives alone, it's considered good. With a hint of irony, he says that he's lucky to have a serious illness, so he gets extra money. Besides being unparalleled in many respects, Hong Kong also has the widest income gap among developed countries globally. The income disparity among residents in Hong Kong, ranging from the wealthiest to the most impoverished, can vary by a staggering factor of 44. Bridging this significant and deep-seated income gap poses a formidable challenge, particularly in the context of capitalist and free market systems operating at their maximum potential. In the absence of policies tailored to tackle these challenges and a deficiency in state governance, the sight of elderly people scavenging through trash, gathering bottles, hauling carts laden with cardboard boxes for meagre earnings, or residing in cramped cage homes is unlikely to vanish from Hong Kong's societal landscape anytime soon.